Try that.
Testing, testing. Ooh, can you hear me? It's a mystery.
1 and 2. Hello, everybody. No, something's really wrong here.
Hmm. Well, that's not
So
nice.
this is first time streaming on the new setup. So give us just a second to sort out.
Technical difficulties. That's what technology is good for, right? Is creating difficulties.
Talking your mind.
Talking in my mic.
Right, it's creating difficulties.
Oh, well, we can hear us.
Okay,
Talking
so
in my
apparently
mic.
you can hear us. Oh, Alan, what's up? Been a while.
Hey, hey. All right.
Oh, so we're trying out the new setup. This is
It's true. It's true.
first time in the new studio. And I don't know why the board is not registering and showing that you can hear us, but I'm glad you can hear us. That's
Yes.
awesome.
It's good news.
So, Alan, what have you been thinking about the Acolyte? Have you been watching it?
You've been watching it.
We have been watching it. So we're going to be talking about episodes, what, 6 and 7, right?
Yes, 6 and 7.
I don't know if that's what I put. Was that what I put in the description of this?
I think so. Let me see.
It doesn't matter. I'll fix it later.
All right.
I'll fix it in post.
Oh, have fix it first. Yeah. Everybody's favorite line. Fix it in post.
Yeah. So,
Haven't watched the show. Have you watched the show at all, or just not watched these 2 episodes?
I think you haven't
Inquiring
watched the
minds.
show. So, warning before we go any further, this is our spoiler review of episodes 6 and 7.
Yes. Although
Whew.
presumably, if you've made it this far in, like without watching the show, you're not watching it on purpose, which is fair. You know.
Yeah.
Our kids watched literally the first 2 episodes dropped. They watched episode 1 and were like, peace out. And they left. They just straight up left.
Yeah. And so the kids are usually my barometer for
Mhm.
am I being too harsh on Star Wars?
Right.
Because they're the 2 girls are 12 and 14, the boy's 10 now. Like they're my barometer. They're theoretically the primary target audience. I still think Star Wars,
Right.
when George said he wrote it for kids, he didn't mean he wrote it just for kids,
Yeah.
but it was meant to appeal to kids. Well, my kids could care less.
So pretty much Iana's sitting there and she says, I swear, if it turns out that she's got an evil twin, I'm out.
Yep. So evil twin, and she didn't lie. She pieced out.
Yeah, like she was evil twin. She was like, that's dumb. And she was done. She was
Yeah.
just, I mean, and that's fair.
Yeah. So before we get going on this, though, goodness, what is the fandom? So before this came out, and Ro will remember this because I've been saying this for a while, and I'm pretty sure I said it on his show that I have been scared to death since they announced this, that this show was going to be The Last Jedi 2.0 and what it did to the fandom. And I'm actually starting to think it's worse.
Yeah, it's not better.
It's not better, but I mean, the stuff that's going on right now, like, Wikipedia has gone on a massive unfollowing spree on Twitter tonight and unfollowed us, which they've blocked one of our accounts. I'm not all that concerned about it. But they, they're unfollowing people that they have followed for years. And I
Yeah.
think they forgot that they're not,
Mhm.
that they're solely a fan project. Like,
Right.
you're not above it. You're not above the fans.
Right.
Like, you're a fan run thing. You give the other fans the boot, they'll go elsewhere.
Yeah. Turns out we can get information about Star Wars somewhere other than Wikipedia.
It's true. But it's just been absolutely nasty.
Yeah, it's been pretty rough. Just
And
I sort of just avoid Star Wars X these days.
it could be. I know there's new management. I know there's new people taking over at Wikipedia, and maybe they've decided to cut back to only people they actually know. I'm not sure. Who knows?
Either
But
way, it comes off as
they have
petty.
been very tied in with, not that they were causing it, but they have been tied to a lot of drama, and they caused a lot of drama their own selves. Granted, that was the old management. Oddly enough, the old management followed me from his personal account this week,
That is
so
weird.
I don't know. Um, let's see. Alan says he's canceled his Disney Plus. Can't stomach what he's seen lately. Hey, you're not being harsh. Honestly, like, I'm glad that some people like this episode. When I first watched this episode last night, I was like, that was better. And there were things, I think there's things worth talking about in there.
Mhm.
But they took my favorite character and made me really dislike him. Um, they took a character that showed us some of the best lightsaber moves that we've seen in a while from Torben, of all people.
Mhm.
And we all know where that ends.
Right.
And
We did
Torben
get to
is,
see the Wookiee go full on Jedi, which was great.
well, I mean, Sith controlled Jedi.
Who cares? It was a cool fight. It was a
Yeah,
cool
no, it doesn't
fight.
get better against the Wookiee when it doesn't get better when you're fighting the Wookiee when he loses his lightsaber.
No.
So but we're jumping ahead. So because we didn't get, so we were in the process of doing um all of this when we should have done our episode 6 review. Yeah, Torben just wanted to go home, and when he found out there was a virgin in the Force, he was like, "Oh, we're going home." I
Like,
mean,
with all of the restraint of a 9-year-old. I mean, for
or a
real.
Jar Jar Binks. I mean, like, no, we're going to get into that. They made the Jedi that we have here really look like fools. We kind of get Indara, who's probably supposed to be the most powerful of this bunch, and she's better in this than she was in the first. In the first one, we were like, "What's she doing?"
Right.
First time we saw her, but now we're we're looking at Indara, and she's at least initially trying to be the voice of reason.
Mhm.
But like, what I don't like is, one, we're supposed to see the fall of the Jedi, right? And we
Mhm.
talked about this. We're supposed to see the fall of the Jedi over this space of time between the High Republic and the prequels.
Yeah.
But it should get worse as it goes, not start at the worst and then maybe get a little better before total collapse. Because they're not this bad. Um, Oh, thanks for stopping in, Alan. We need to catch up soon. But and I think Andrew joined us. Yeah, thank you. I'm very happy with the new setup. I'm sure I will be tweaking it for a while, but I'm pretty happy with it.
After he had a meltdown about how much he hated everything initially when we first did it, we finally recovered.
I mean, I've been
Andrew
in that
doesn't-
office for 6 years.
Andrew does not excel and thrive in change.
Mhm.
It's not his favorite. True story.
Yeah.
But now that we got it changed, it's nice.
It wasn't
We
the
like it.
change, it was the getting from point A to, it was the in between.
It was the changing.
Yes. Well, it was the in between. It was the, like, destroyed the place, my comfortable place.
Yeah.
And because this is not just my YouTube studio. This is also my office where I work. And so all of that was going on. I was working in the middle of it. And it was a little stressful. But it's done. It's like 95% done.
Except for those couple of boxes of things that are still in Elijah's room.
Yeah.
But
All right.
we're
So
almost there.
I really want to talk about episode 7. But we need to back up and talk about
Mhm.
episode 6 first.
Okay, so as I'm watching it,
Also, I'm having bourbon to get through this.
mhm. So I feel like Roe really hit the nail on the head here. Each Jedi seems to embody some toxic quality. That's definitely by design. I
Yeah.
think that that's 100.
Yeah, right. We got to talk about Naked Keimer. I mean, he took a big risk, getting out fully nude while she was holding a lightsaber. We could have had a first in Star Wars. Like, he could have lost an appendage that's never been lost in Star Wars before.
All right, love.
I'm just saying, it was a risk.
Wow. Okay, so it's like I'm kind of watching it, and here's my thing. Because we kind of had a conversation earlier in the process about the Jedi, and that we kind of want the Jedi to be the good guys and the Sith to be the bad guys, right? And not that I need the Jedi to be perfect, but in general, I want the Jedi to be heroic, at least.
Right.
But here, more importantly, here's here's the drift I'm getting from Keimer is poor me has been through trauma, has been through bad things. The mean Jedi will not let me do things the way that I want to. And therefore, I'm justified in killing them.
Yeah. Well, Keimer says a lot, but I go back. So there's a couple of things. One, I'm a little concerned that the people writing this, creating this, latched onto an episode 3 line where Palpatine is telling Anakin, the Jedi and the Sith are alike in most ways, in almost every way. So I'm a little afraid that they're latching onto that as truth.
And honestly, it doesn't bother me that Keimer's saying all of these things.
No, because the villain, it's fine if the villain is not a reliable narrator.
As long as he's not.
As long as he's not. If it's meant to be truth, but it's problematic in the story for the story, then you've done something you shouldn't have done.
If we've come around,
and honestly, I feel like the writing is sloppy. The writing is, I feel like it thinks it's very, very clever.
They haven't done a clever thing in this show yet.
No.
The only unexpected thing they did was kill Jackie and Yord.
Yes. Well, I mean, I expected them to die. Did not expect them to die that soon.
Yeah.
I kind of expected everybody to die at the end, Rogue One style.
Yeah. So, like I said, I don't mind Keimer spouting all of this. But what I'm concerned is that they are pulling the narrative around to, and guess what? Bum, bum, he's right. Yeah. If he's right, then that's a real problem.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, like, it's very sad whenever terrible things happen to you and you're rejected by people that should take care of you and you lose the things that you love. Okay, that's tragic. Like, trauma is a sad thing. However, it doesn't entitle you to murder people. I'm sorry.
Well, there's a lot of this. There's a lot of wanting to cast Keimer in a sympathetic light. But we're also doing the thing with, is it Anastasia, Mother Anastasia? Is that her name? We're doing that in the next episode with her.
Yeah.
Where, she clearly loves her child, so she can't be bad.
Right.
Bad people love their children. Right. I mean, some don't, but like,
this conversation calls for ice cream or bourbon
shots. So yeah, so I mean, honestly, Nicole, with the most recent episode, I think if you just take what's in that episode all by itself, it's the best episode. If I wasn't looking at anything else.
Right.
But when I start looking at it in relation to the others, with the fact, what episode was the first half of this? 3 or 4?
For the first half?
Well, we saw the other point of view of this episode.
Oh, I don't remember.
whichever episode it was. This is our second perspective of this part of the story,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's a cool concept. It's not a new concept. It's a tried and true concept.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's interesting to come back and show different points of view. I was
Mm-hmm.
honestly when they first started down that road, I was
Mm-hmm.
kind of hoping ice cream with bourbon in it's pretty good. Um, when we first started down that road, I was like, this is cool. I actually hope we get like 3 or 4 points of view, and that's most of the rest of the show.
Mm-hmm.
But we're only getting the two.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is there's really nothing you could have you could have trimmed about 70% out of one of those episodes and just made it one episode. It doesn't improve anything by doing it as two.
Mm-mm.
I think it could have been a really good episode done as one. I think it could have been a
Right.
really excellent episode done as one.
Yeah.
So I'm really torn on it because again, without considering the rest of the show, the rest of the episodes,
Yeah.
it's fine. Other than the Jedi, you're like the Jedi suck.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
mostly the lies and deceit. That's a lot of what's going on is lies and deceit, especially on the part of Saul,
Mm-hmm.
who was my previous favorite, but he's really diving down this path of lies. But anyway, where were we on episode 6?
Where are we? Yord and all of his not Yord.
Kymer.
Kymer, yeah, and his from my point of view, the Jedi are evil tirade, basically.
Yeah.
Which I mean, it's fine from his point of view, but if we embrace that as the truth, also okay. Who is the titular acolyte at this point?
It could be Kymer, could be May, it could be
That's
Osha.
dumb. We should know who the acolyte is. Like it's just
Yeah.
it's oh yeah.
Well,
And so I really agree that the biggest issue here has just been like the character motivations have just been
there aren't. I mean, the motivations make no sense.
no. So Kymer is like, okay, he first of all, he keeps his identity a secret from May. It is a big thing, big whole identity thing. Ben, but he wants to also be her friend in a different capacity. And then he shows up and kills off all the Jedi, tries to kill May but doesn't. Takes Osha, doesn't kill Soul. Like why? Why are and not no we're not even going to go back into May's motivations or lack of coherence there.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what, and this is something that a lot of these shows are guilty of. But I mean, honestly, at this point, despite this, so with a lot of these shows, the Disney Plus Star Wars shows, I have really kind of felt like pretty much up to this point, The Mandalorian, I don't really even understand the hate for season 3 of The Mandalorian. I think
Yeah.
you could have called it something else and maybe gotten a little less hate if you had said Mandalorian season 1 and 2, and then you had, Return to Mandalore or something and done that as that season and maybe taken some of the expectations, tempered some of the expectations for what it was. I think
Yeah.
that episode, I think it's fine. Episode 3 is still infinitely better than, I mean, season 3 of The Mandalorian is still infinitely better than anything else we've gotten. Except for the last 5 episodes of Andor. Last
Yeah.
5 episodes of Andor are absolute gold.
Yeah.
But it's the shows like Book of Boba Fett, and I did a lot of defending Book of Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
Book of Boba Fett has a really, really good story in there, but it's overbloated. It should have been trimmed down to a hour and 45, 2 hour movie is what that should have been.
Yeah.
instead of however many episodes they ended up giving us.
Mm-hmm.
It was not, they stretched too much material, too little material too far.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Ahsoka was not terrible. There's a lot of good stuff in there, but again, it could have been cut down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But neither of those shows did things that just made me go, "What?" This show is at the bottom of the barrel for me,
Yeah.
and I really didn't want it to be. I didn't want this show to be divisive. I didn't want it to be any of these things. I thought it would be,
Mm-hmm.
but I really didn't want it to be. And it's Star Wars. I wanted to love it,
Mm-hmm.
but this show's a different kind of mess than Ahsoka and Kenobi and Book of Boba Fett. This show's a whole different kind of mess.
This one is a
This is a Star Wars written by
someone who's more interested in an agenda than a story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really been and there have been, it's definitely had its things that I liked about it. And it's also had its things that are just like,
and we're going to get into that. So let's finish up. I don't think there's that much to talk about episode 6.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely hitting on her.
Yeah.
Which is like, especially for so problematic. Like, I mean, I understand he's a bad guy, but geez, Pete, like he wants to be the master, but he also wants, I don't know. He just, it's a problem.
So I'm not going to fully go into what I think the agenda is here because this becomes an entirely different show if I do. But I think the easiest way to say it is this is the first real true attempt at a postmodernist Star Wars. Everything's gray.
Yeah, nobody's actually good.
Nobody's actually good. Nobody's actually bad.
Well,
everybody's a shade of gray.
And I like the main thing is I'm really concerned that
there are no moral truths.
Yeah. And the light side isn't actually doesn't seem like they're painting the light side as good and the dark side is evil. It's just that they're both kind of there. And like I said, if Keimer turns out to be full of shit and the story kind of goes there, then I will happily recant all of my things that I've said about this. But I really feel like they're going the direction where he's justified in being a dark side user.
Yeah.
And the thing is, there's never a justification for genocide. There's never a justification for embracing evil, even if you've been treated badly. And I really feel like that's the direction the story is going, is that, and that's the thing that I feel like is an agenda. The actor Charlie What's-His-Face said as much in interviews. Yeah.
I'm not sure which one Charlie What's-His-Face is.
I'm not sure. I'm assuming that's Keimer. Oh, maybe.
Or Keimer, no, Keimer is Manny Jacinto.
Man, I have to say though.
Okay, so
he is doing a fantastic job. I'm really
look. I didn't like the Yord character. The actor did a good job. I'm really kind of feel burnt on Saul, who I liked, and now I'm really like unsure what's going on with him. They've really messed with his motivations. Great actor. I think everybody in Dara, I wasn't that impressed with Indara the first time we saw her. We didn't see that much of her. Way more impressed with her here. I feel like Daphne Keene did a great job, and Manny Jacinto is doing a great job. I feel like the main character is the weakest actor in the whole thing.
Also, can I just throw out there, why is it that we feel like we need to make our dark side users beautiful and sexy and like create some whole other dimension. Because let's not kid ourselves. Nobody would have been pro Kylo Ren if he hadn't be pretty. Nobody would be pro Kymer if he weren't attractive and interesting.
So
If he were an ugly old man, nobody would be like, yeah, he's right.
so theoretically, I don't mind that because it's this, whole Satan presents himself as being a light, right?
Right.
Yeah, Lucifer. It's Lucifer.
Yeah.
However, it doesn't become problematic because the show did it.
Right.
And I'm fixing to say something that's going to get me attacked if anybody watches my show, but I'm not that worried about the two of you that are watching. The ships over the dark characters, just because of their looks, get a little disturbing.
Yeah.
But because, like Rose saying here, like it's kind of the Lucifer model for your
But
villain.
it's not just he's beautiful. It's that all of a sudden we have to sort of start, like the narrative has to start getting him acting like, well, he's right, and because he's pretty, we buy it. Not just in universe people, but like it's the people, and it's not even necessarily it's not necessarily the story's fault. Maybe it's just the people. It's just like, just because a person is attractive doesn't make the fact that they're a serial killer cool.
Yeah.
Just saying. Yeah, the ships, man. Ship culture has ruined fandom.
Well, let's see.
I'm just saying.
So what else? So big things in this. So let's talk. There are a few good things in this episode. I'm gonna run through a couple of things I didn't like really, really fast. I don't understand. I don't know. I don't even want to know how much of that budget they spent on Basil, because that is like the most useless character that anyone has dreamed up in a long time. He runs around, he sniffs, and he runs around some more. He doesn't help anybody. He's disappeared every time anybody needed help. He knows that's not OSHA, but he's just sneaking around the ship instead of telling Saul.
Maybe he did.
Saul is, it bothers me that Saul doesn't know, he's so close to OSHA, but doesn't realize that's not OSHA. Now you can say it's because of the way he ain't right. Like he's
also, they share a,
yeah, but
same,
we can do that, but Keimer knows.
Yeah. Oh my God, Ro, the metal detector.
You talk about that metal detector they picked up at Radio Shack on their way to
Oh my God. I was like, oh my God, with the metal detector. And Andrew's like, what? I didn't even see. I had to go back and look at it. And it was just like,
yeah,
it's really like, I feel like there's a prop master standing off stage going, who's really mad because because it's literally just a metal detector. It sounds like a metal detector. It looks like it's like nothing Star Wars or interesting about it at all. Yes, the metal detector was, I know it's not like a big story point or anything, but the metal detector was lame. Just saying.
Yeah.
Lame.
So there is a line here I want to discuss from Keimer, where he's kind of talking about his past. He's being pretty cryptic about it. He lost everything and says that he was discarded by someone. And she says, "You're Jedi Master," and he doesn't answer. But she's like, "I've never heard of you. Like, were you a Jedi? I've never heard of you." And he says it was a very long time ago.
Yeah.
So, like, are we even seeing his actual form? Is this,
or maybe he's learned the secret of everlasting youth?
well, it may not be everlasting youth. There could be other things going on here. We could be.
What's that movie with Meryl Streep? the whole staying young thing falling apart because you were still, you know what I'm talking about.
The so what we might be fixing to merge some stories, some ideas that are going on in multiple places, um, relating to the creation of OSHA in May. So
Yeah.
we still didn't fill in all the gaps, like
Mm-hmm.
why the temple that was looked like it's made out of rock explodes. I guess there are minerals that can burn and explode, but usually don't tunnel into those sorts of things. I don't know. It's Star Wars, so I'm not that worried about it. But like we have this thing where Saul is talking to Keimer, and he says, "I felt a presence that night on what's the name of this? Is that Brendock
Mm-hmm.
or
Yep.
is Brendock where the witches are?"
Yeah.
Okay, so he says, he says I felt a presence that night, and so I was like, okay, well we'll revisit, we'll get that angle in this flashback, but we still didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I feel like this attempt at mystery box storytelling just hasn't worked.
Yeah. Too many questions, 7 episodes in. And they just sort of keep, at least they finally told us the story that they kept hinting, like that was getting old.
Yeah.
Like literally the last in episode 6, whenever we got to make this chair quit squeaking, it's driving me nuts.
Well, quit moving around so much.
It's part of my, I can't. So, did you tell me everything that happened that night on Brendock? And he's like,
Oh,
and I was like, come on, people, come
like
on.
no, we they teased that way too many times of, oh, there's more to the story, but I'm not going to tell you yet.
And it wasn't just like there's more to the story. It's like, I will tell you.
The story.
I will tell you soon. Oh, I can't tell you right now. Why not? Like it's a long trip.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So if what we're doing is some early, so one of the things that I guess when we get to the sequel trilogy all this time later is that Palpatine has learned to move, basically transition his spirit, his essence to another body.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's something Keimer's been doing, and maybe
Yeah.
he is a character that we're gonna know when he's revealed who he actually is. Um, I will personally be okay if like Plagueis or somebody just shows up and kills everybody at the end of this, but because we still have an unrevealed character.
Mm-hmm. Wait, who?
I believe there's an actor that's a bit, an actor in this that still hasn't been revealed, which is crazy at this point. But
yeah,
again, it was an attempt at telling a mystery, but look, mystery writing is not.
This is not mystery writing.
But it's also a more complicated form of writing. It's not like action adventure writing. It's relatively upfront, especially the Star Wars style that's very caught up in like pulps and things like that. It's very straightforward.
Yeah.
And I don't think all Star Wars has to be that, but like if we're going to do a murder mystery, let's go get somebody that writes murder mysteries.
Yeah.
Like that has at least shown,
the thing is, they haven't even told us what the mystery
but not
is.
Ryan Johnson.
They haven't told us what the mystery is. It's like it's billed as like a mystery in space. What mystery?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It was supposed to be a murder mystery, but none of it was. It was all too obvious, and the things that are not obvious are there's too many. Like Rose said, there's too many unanswered questions for one episode left.
Yeah,
but we're gonna have to talk about how the twins were created because
yeah,
I think a few minutes before, and I think I said this early on that, well, I've been saying for a while that I want, however they were created, to be sort of dark, like a little twisted. I think it needs to be to kind of set this tone back where it's supposed to be. I really want Well, where I think they're going now, I mean, I think the impression that we're getting is that so this is one consciousness that's been split in two,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a pre-existing consciousness, and we're kind of doing the
Mm-hmm.
so this is Morgoth, right, from Lord of the
Right.
Rings. He can't create life, but he can twist life that exists.
Yeah.
And so May and Osha or something, or the spirit of someone that he has twisted to his own purpose, that they have twisted
Mm-hmm.
for their own purpose.
Yeah.
And whether them being born as two instead of one was intentional or not, yet to be seen.
Yeah. Um, and honestly, as far as I'm concerned, that's really the only interesting question,
Of the
really,
of the
that we've
questions,
kind of pulled up
Ubaldo,
so
thanks for
far.
joining. Yeah, of the questions that we've been asked, that's the interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Also, what was the deal with the witches and like the just smoky thing?
the smoke monster, when they turned into smoke monsters,
Yeah, I mean, like,
I think I heard somebody call them ashy dementors. So, I mean, like the biggest piece of gaslighting in all of Star Wars, right? Where she starts just no warning, nothing, starts turning into the smoke monster over here. And then the child starts disappearing. And so Saul, to protect the child, or at
Mhm.
least that's his thing. So I don't even have to
Right.
question that. That's the one motivation I know is true of Saul. He's protecting the child.
Yeah.
So Saul just pulls out the lightsaber and stabs
Mm-hmm.
and kills Mother Anastasia. And it's like, and then she's like, I was gonna let her go with you. And it's like, oh, were you now? It's like, were you? Or is this like the biggest gaslight in all of Star Wars? I was gonna do it, but now it's too late. Who knows? It was a terrible that I don't know. I don't understand like the whole lies and deceit thing is so anti Jedi, so antithetical to the
Mm-hmm.
Jedi. And it's like, this is not that big a deal. You go back and you tell the council what happened.
Right. Like, why are we keeping this a secret? What
Like,
happened
why?
here?
Yeah, why? What is the motivation for keeping this secret?
Mm-hmm.
I certainly saw nothing for Torben to off himself.
Right.
And then Kelnaka like is so disturbed and goes off on his own and is now maybe his head's never right after.
And that does seem a little, that maybe Torben and
Well, the way that he was controlled was different than the way Torben was controlled.
that's true.
Um,
But yeah, it does make sense that they would never be. But also, like, they sort of pitched it like
thank you, Nicole.
Torben had something to make up for, and he didn't.
And Ubaldo, thank you.
Like
Torben,
like he
like
was
nothing
just
about Torben,
there.
nothing about Torben makes sense. Like
No.
Torben, like with the lightsaber, coolest character in this show, like but hands down. Like he had like prequel, like he had the Obi-Wan and Anakin moves down. Like
Mhm.
heck, I'd love to see more of that.
I honestly really hate that they did what they did with his character, because it's like, well, that's a one and done. And I feel like he's a really talented actor.
Yeah.
I feel like we could have done some more things with him, but nope.
Maybe, but I mean, I don't really feel like did the fall of the Jedi and the prequels really need more explanation? I mean, we see the arrogance of the Jedi all over the prequels.
Well, exactly. Just like he says, they don't
Yeah.
need more explanation.
Yeah.
Like, we pretty much get a good, I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's what we're doing. Is this was made for High Republic people who think that the idea of the fall of the Jedi is somehow a new concept or something. But the argument that I've made is that they're doing it like we've still got 100 years to go to get to the prequels. They can't fall apart this fast.
No, the Catholic Church fell apart for a really long time.
But they're worse now than they are at the time of the prequels.
That's true.
They can't, like, that's what I'm saying is like
Mhm.
too much too fast.
Torben just wanted to.
Torben, yeah, I don't know if it was Fortnite or what it was, but Torben just wanted to go home. He does not like camping.
It's like such a lame motivate. Again, he's got like he's acting like a dadgum 8-year-old.
Yeah, he's not
I
a youngling.
just want to
He's not
go
a youngling. He's a
home.
Padawan, which means he is supposed to be, and not a young Padawan.
No.
He should be beyond this. I mean, his, we show him as one of the most skilled with the lightsaber, but
Mhm.
then like
I mean, like,
emotionally,
if my 15-year-old caught that kind of attitude about anything, we'd be having a real conversation.
yeah.
Especially if it were something actually important. They could have written anything else. Yes. It's like, what?
And I think
That's what we're going with?
and I think the idea is that Torben is not interested in going out and doing missions. He's just interested in the comfort of Coruscant, which is kind of a thing the Jedi fall into.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is someone who should have never made it past being a youngling in the Order.
And like,
And
I'm going to
that's
go
the real-
run into the middle of this hornet's nest because I want to go home. They're the proof that I need. Like,
but yeah, but what do you think about I mean, Saul's not a whole lot better here. What is with his infatuation with Osha?
yeah. It's not very Jedi like.
No, it's not. However, is one of the things, so is it whoever the spirit is it someone that him and maybe Keimer also had a relationship with in the past, and they're connecting to a familiarity?
Oh, maybe.
And that's my only thought on it, is that there's a familiarity that they're feeling with these individuals, and that's what's driving them, because I feel like he's kind of doing the same thing. He's more level-headed than Saul, but that he's also got some sort of infatuation with O'Shea and May.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know.
So,
I mean, I hope that I hope it ends well.
Well, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I've been given most of these. I gave one episode, the one where they have the lightsaber duels, I gave that one a B. I think every other episode I've given a C. Mm-hmm. But I think the too many season, and like I said, on its own merit, like just taking this episode all by itself, it does a lot of things better than other episodes. Mm-hmm. But it makes a more of a mess out of other things. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think where I'm at on this show is that going into the final episode, I'm firmly at a D for this series.
Okay.
And that's totally hinging on where it goes, totally on what the finale does. The finale can be, the problem is the show's such a mess. The finale can be really good and get it back to a C for me.
Yeah.
But if it's really bad, it stays at a D or an F, and a D is just an F that makes you feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
I mean, getting a D is like, you might as well have stolen fizzy lifting drink from Willy Wonka's chocolate factory and you get nothing. I don't know. I just can't get my head around the writing in this show.
Yeah.
It's like it was written by people that don't understand people.
Or Star Wars or
right, but I mean like seriously,
fantasy.
Think about it though. It really feels like whoever wrote, like, I don't know if Headland wrote these or if someone else. I haven't paid attention to who wrote them, honestly, but
She's been on the she's written. She hasn't been the only writer, but she
it's
has.
like it feels like they're written by people that don't understand the motivations people have, because that's the one thing we keep coming back to is what's the motivation? And it's like, how can you miss over and over and over again on the way real people? Yeah, it's a fantasy story, but your characters still need to have familiar motivations. These characters, that's what connects us to characters is not the character,
Right.
or anything. It's there are other things about a character that connect us to them, but it's mostly their motivations.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem with having trouble connecting to these characters. It's like I wanted to like Torben, but I can't connect to any of his motivation. The reason he offs himself, the running, the just running like a madman to back to the temple when he thinks he's found his magic ticket home. Especially after what had happened to him when they were there previously. That was the only twist I didn't see coming. Was I thought the witches were going to twist him again, and that Kelnaka was going to have to fight him. I didn't really expect them to get into Kelnaka's head. That's like the only twist in this whole show that I didn't see coming.
Yeah.
That fight scene was cool. There's some cool stuff. That fight scene is probably, I think I like that fight scene better than I like the one in the episode Night. It's more consistent. There were some really cool stuff. I really loved the scene in the previous one where Jackie and Saul are fighting Keimer together. Real kind of prequel throwback there. Very, very cool. A lot of the rest of that fight's kind of a mess. It's like the one that I was telling you earlier, the kind of the weird scene where you see the red saber when she's looking at it through the trees. You can really only see the sabers. There's like a red saber over here fighting somebody, and then off to the right there's two good guys just like flailing their sabers around, and it's like, what are they doing? It's like the bugs aren't there yet, so if they'd had the bugs show up earlier, that could have actually made sense, and maybe they did. Maybe that got changed and they didn't bother fixing it.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll just have to see how it ends. Hopefully we'll get some answers that are satisfying.
I need a because I don't believe there's any chance of a season 2, and I don't want the answers to this stuff in a comic book or another book. That's a cop out. Like, we got to quit doing that. Like, it's one thing to expand a story with a book or a comic, but when you have to have the book or comic to fix the holes that you left, we've done too much of that in Star Wars.
Yeah,
that needs to stop. I'm just, I don't know. I'm really like, I'm trying to present a balanced view of this show, but I'm really just kind of fed up with it.
Yeah, it's like I said, they could end it in a place where I feel really good about it, but based on the sorts of dialogue that a lot of the actors and the writers and things have going into it, I'm not confident that it's going to end in a place that I find satisfying.
What for you does it have to do to be satisfying, to have a satisfying ending? What questions? I don't think they can tie it up in a neat little bow. I've got a real fear that they were angling for a second season that they're not going to get.
Yeah.
And honestly, here's what worries me right now for Star Wars. It's hard. One, streaming services are just not transparent with their numbers, but we do have the Nielsen numbers that at least give us ideas. Well, so the only show with lower Nielsen numbers than this one is Andor. Now, the thing with Andor is I look at as different. Andor is a little more niche. It's really not it was a little too cerebral for the kids. I don't even think that it was that they didn't like what they saw. It just
didn't really make sense.
It was too much. especially for the younger two. And so I think that Andor gets a little bit of a pass on that because it's just it's a different kind of Star Wars that was meant for a smaller demographic, frankly.
Yeah.
But we're seeing this outside of Mandalorian, we're just seeing this downward trend. And what I have noticed, and this is what really worries me, this is from talking to acquaintances and friends who are very much more on the casual side of fandom, and they're hating this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like they're not like, I'm finding that casuals are being more harsh to this than I am.
Yeah.
And I don't, that's a problem. Like if
Yeah.
it's always been, I've always felt like when I kind of left the Twitter sphere and went out there and tried to gauge a real world reaction to this stuff, that I go, okay, it's not as bad as it seems if you're just on Twitter. But now it is.
Yeah.
And it's not just this show. Kenobi kind of slid that direction too, but this one really slid that way.
Yeah.
I don't know how you fix it.
I don't know.
I mean, you get the Mandalorian back on screen as fast as you can and just do a Mandalorian story, not a Mandalorian and Bo-Katan story, even though I liked it. Just, I think you just bring the Mandalorian back as fast as you can.
Yeah. Or something.
Or something. But I mean, that's been so, you know, Andor season 2 can't come fast enough. But again, I don't think Andor fixes the numbers. Although I think we've gotten over a certain hump with Andor in the buildup where I think the new season might be more digestible to a casual Star Wars fan.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
I feel like the last few episodes started to feel more and more like the Star Wars we know. I think it was designed that way.
Yeah.
That we're kind of moving into the rebellion.
Now, that's a show that understood its genre.
Yes, 100%.
You know, you may not have loved everything about it, but it was a spy thriller.
Yes, that was somebody, they went and got somebody to write that knew exactly what they were writing. They understood their character's motive. That's the big thing. The character motivations in Andor are unmistakable.
And consistent.
Yeah, well, consistent in that we see most everybody has a consistent, except for Andor, who is finding his way.
But that's fine if you get to see instead of just
you
like
see
going
their trajectory. Correct, because with Andor, you see the trajectory that his story takes to get him to where we see him in Rogue One.
Right.
So yeah. I don't know that there's anything this show can do to save it for me to get it back above. I would say Book of Boba Fett's the bottom of the barrel right now.
Okay.
And I don't hate Book of Boba Fett. The story's there. It's just a mess.
Yeah.
But I don't know what they could do to get this one back off of the bottom for me.
Yeah.
I think a satisfying ending, getting this back to a passing grade for me means giving me a really, really satisfying answer to who Kymer is, what his story is, what his backstory is, and a really satisfying story of how the witches created Osha and May. If you don't answer those two stories,
yeah,
I mean those two questions,
yeah,
then this is a total loss.
And we have to get some direction of like Osha's pretty, like she's a fairly open book, but like May is just totally all over the place, and we either need an explanation for why she's so all over the place.
I would have said that about Osha until episode 6, when she falls for the villain so fast. Like, she falls for this villain, and it's like, he just killed all your friends,
right?
Like, seriously, he just killed all your friends. If Darth Vader shows up next week, man, Star Wars Theory's gonna lose it. Almost worth it.
Maybe we'll have Darth Revan show up.
Look, oh God, you know Leslie Headland right before this season released was pitching that she really wants to do the Darth Revan story. And I had not even seen an episode. I was like, no, thank you. There are only a handful of people I would ever want to touch that. If
Maybe
you really,
Keimer is
hey,
Darth Revan.
if you really want to bring people back, bring back a fan favorite writer. Go get a
Sam
real
Witwer as Darth Revan.
Right. I mean, I think Sam Witwer is the perfect person. I think Sam Witwer is completely deserving of a live action role, a real live action face role.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has earned the right to lead, and you haven't really used him in a capacity that would prevent using him as a lead in a live action.
And he
series.
does dark really well.
He does dark, but he can turn that off.
Yeah. He's funny.
The only other person that there are a couple other actors. What's his name from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Oh, Brett. What's his name?
I'm gonna draw a blank.
Yeah,
he would probably be my outside of Witwer, he would be my first choice.
Mm-hmm.
So Witwer would be my first choice.
Mm-hmm.
The guy from S.H.I.E.L.D. would be my second choice.
His name is drawing a blank. That's very annoying.
Well, you talk and I'll look it up.
He's yeah, he also did he's actually also really funny.
Right.
But
he can do both.
He does dark and scary too, which I feel like is kind of what stars Brad Tracy. It's definitely
Brett Dalton.
Brett Dalton, yes, the guy with two first names. I mean, Clark Gregg is something in Star Wars I would watch. Probably not Revan, but maybe.
No, but Brett Dalton.
Yes.
So I think that I've always wanted to see. There's an old KOTOR story with the two brothers.
Yes.
That kind of flip roles towards the end. Like one's following the path of the dark, one's following the light, and they kind of have a reversal towards the end of that story. And Sam Witwer and Brett Dalton are like made for that role. We'll never get it, but
thanks to the power of AI, you could make it.
What about the power of two?
The power of many.
Okay, so what do you think killed the witches?
Oh my God. Okay, wait. That song at the end of that episode, Andrew, was maybe the worst thing I've ever heard. It was like right up there with the refrigerator song at the end of that episode of the show that they jerked off at Disney Plus because everybody hated it so much. Willow. It was so bad.
Willow's got to move those refrigerators and color TVs, right?
Anyway.
That song was literally written by someone listening to someone in an appliance store, like kind of muttering to himself about all the things they needed to do. Like, no lie.
That's hilarious. Okay, so the witches, if the witches are dead, I think they died from smoke inhalation.
What did they inhale the smoke monster when the horny witch turned into the smoke monster? Did they accidentally inhale her?
I mean, there's a fire.
They got the black line.
Most people die from smoke inhalation in a fire.
So we don't see smoke there. There's no fire. So and I don't know what you said. I missed that, but
probably the refrigerator. I don't know. Marisha just said a lot of things.
So lost it.
What killed the witches?
The witches. So we see Mother Anastasia tries to turn into a smoke monster and she gets stabbed, which is interesting that whatever form she was in there, she could be stabbed. Whatever. At least she died. And I don't mean at least though the character died. She got stabbed with a lightsaber and she died like you're supposed to. we've had too many. I mean, I don't care if someone survives a lightsaber wound occasionally, but like it's
Mhm.
been happening a lot. Um, well, so I don't think you're that wrong. Like, so I think the coral, the other mother coral, she disappears. Smoke
Smoke flies.
monsters. If she smoke monsters, gets out of there. I think she just goes away. I don't know where she
I
goes.
assume that she,
See, that's the thing. I think she's still alive. She's still out there somewhere.
yeah.
I don't think because a lot of people are taking it that she's possessing Kilnaka,
Hmm.
but I think the other witches are possessing Kilnaka,
Hmm.
and I think the connection is so strong that when Indara severs it, she kills them.
Yeah.
Like Rose says, and Indara pulled the witch's grip from the Matrix. Um, I really do think that that's what we were supposed. We're never going to get an answer to that,
No.
to what happened. But my impression is that they were controlling Kilnaka.
Hmm.
Apparently, you sit in a nice orderly rows and like sway and
Hold hands.
hold hands and sing Kumbaya.
Kumbaya. My force, kumbaya.
So, but I do think that Coral's still out there.
Hmm.
So I expect her to show up in the finale.
Yeah, that's reasonable. At least we finally got to see Wookiee do some real fighting.
Yeah, at least that wasn't totally wasted.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I love the fight scene.
Mhm.
Um, I still don't understand the temple, the way the temple burns down.
Hmm.
I I don't have to have it explained. That's ultimately a nitpick. What about Saul, the like saving the kids? This has been the big complaint online today. So Saul is holding up the two bridges.
All right, he's got the two sides. Can't hold them
He
both.
can't hold them both. When he finally exhausts, he switches
He
and
picks
holds
one.
one as long as he can until it collapses. And then so a lot of people were like, well, why didn't he, why did he just like a regular person jump over and grab her? Like my my impression is that he holds two until he's exhausted, and
Hmm.
then he holds one
Until he can't.
until he just can't.
Yeah.
And then he has to like actually catch her because the force is not an indefinite well of power. Like
Right.
you're physically exerting yourself to use it.
Hmm.
So I don't mind that. But what do you think about the argument that he should have just grabbed the children instead of the bridges?
I mean, maybe, but
Other, you
it's
can.
in the heat of the moment.
I think you can also argue like he grabbed it and he's holding the bridges, and the girls are standing there arguing with each other instead of doing something to help themselves.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. I think the narrative point is that he chose Osho.
Yes. That's the narrative point. I think you clean the whole thing up by not having him hold the bridges up at all. He gets there as it collapses,
Yeah.
and he has to make a decision on saving one.
Yeah.
I think the real problem is not the way he did it. It's just a little sloppy.
I mean, it didn't bother me though.
But I do kind of like I want the force usage to have a little bit of consistency to it. I don't want it to just
Hmm.
right now using the force is totally like plot. It's just a plot device to like it's a get out of jail free card. It's how can we fix this? Use the force.
Hmm. Fair.
Or don't use the force. Like maybe you should have, but you didn't. Made a choice.
True. True.
I don't want. I made the accusation that the little pip droid was the sonic screwdriver of Star Wars. I don't want the Force to be the sonic screwdriver of Star Wars.
Fair. Fair. But it's done some interesting things. It's raised some interesting questions. There are definitely intriguing things about it. There are just things that there are things that I'm concerned about the direction they're going. But we'll see next week.
Yeah.
exactly where it lands. So
Yep. And I know there were things that I may end up doing another episode on this because I know there were things that I should have covered in this, but it's always hard to cover 2 episodes at once. And I know we bounced around like crazy. And I probably didn't cover everything we should have covered from the first episode, from episode 6. But I really don't think there's a lot to talk about in episode 6.
I mean, pretty much most of it is Jedi try and put the pieces
How about
together.
that lightsaber whip, though? Okay, so here's the thing. I know the people who defended it against the people that didn't like it. Their first choice is to go, well, it was in Legends. It's like,
yeah, so are a lot of other dumb things.
It was stupid then too. So was Luke with 2 U's. I like that story's not bad, but like the Luke with 2 U's is kind of silly. Like, I don't know.
You know what's fun is your go-to example of really bad options in Star Wars. Like, well, what we want to bring Clone Palpatine back? Hardy har har.
I know there's a lot of people out there saying they're already planning to bring Palpatine back again.
No, surely not.
I can't imagine that that's a true thing. If they do, it may be in a something. If they're going to keep playing in the interim between the High Republic and, I mean, obviously you got to get a lot closer, and of course you've waited a long time to do a prequel with Ian McDiarmid, unless you're going to go way younger and use someone else.
Yeah.
But I just honestly, I don't need Palpatine back if it's not Ian McDiarmid. Ian McDiarmid's Palpatine. I think that's honestly, I think they've learned their lesson about recasts. I would love to get recasts of. I still think that it's okay to recast, and we could get some of the stories we've always wanted. But at the end of the day, the general audience, I think your casuals see a recast and they groan. I think that's what happened to Solo. I don't think Solo was bad. I think that people saw, oh, you recast Harrison Ford? Okay, I don't care. I really think that's what happened. That and the fact that it followed The Last Jedi.
I really think that was the biggest problem. But we'll never know.
Nope.
So anyway.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap it up for the night. I'm not sure. Ro just left. Good night, Ro. I don't know if anybody else is still in the chat. Now that we're back, I expect to be back quite a bit. And new episode of the Science Fictionary should be out sometime tomorrow. That's the audio episode that you can find wherever you listen to podcasts. New Coruscant Radio Underground right now is just going to be the audio episode, the audio versions of this show.
Yeah.
But pretty soon we'll get back to doing audio episodes over there as well. But both of those should have new episodes up by the end of the day tomorrow, if you listen to the audio stuff. But lots now that we're done with this insane move, should have a lot of new stuff coming up. So anything you want to share before we wrap up?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, you can find this show on Twitter. You can find us on Twitter at crew_podcast. That's CRU_podcast, where Coruscant Radio Underground is our Star Wars show as part of the Science Fictionary podcast. You can find audio for both shows wherever you listen to podcasts, and we're part of the Red 5 Network. And there's lots of great shows at the Red 5 Network, and you can find those shows at bio.link/Red5. Thank you, Ubaldo, Nicole, Andrew, Alan, Ro. Did I forget anybody?
You said Nicole?
I said Nicole.
Okay, thanks everybody.
So thank y'all for dropping in the chat while we were live, and until next time, may the Force be with you.
This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/Red5.